Welcome, first of all. I'm so excited to be here with such bright, talented, empowered women from all over North America. We've got everybody calling in. We've got, Ontario represented. We've got Colorado represented. The Carolinas. We've got quite a good representation across the North America. So I'm first going to start off with introducing Abby. And Abby Repsa is the principal landscape designer and owner of the Botanical Living in Broomfield, Colorado. She's been working with DynaScape software since January 2019. Botanical Living is a design-only firm specializing in residential new builds and renovations of existing landscapes. This is their ninth year in business, and they're proud to serve between 60 and 70 clients annually, all across the Denver metro area. Broomfield Co. work with many different landscape installation crews to help bring their designs to life. They're looking forward to the year ahead. Abby loves tending to her yard, going to concerts, hot yoga, paddle boarding, and she does modeling as a side hustle. So really glad to have you on board, Abby, and welcome to the panel.
Thanks for having me.
And next up, I have Caroline. Caroline Cobb Irvin is started her own landscape design firm, Caroline Irvine. Sorry, Irvin, I knew I was going to do that by accident. Landscape Design LLC in 2007 with a mission to create beautiful and functional outdoor spaces for her residential clients in Washington, D.C. and its nearby suburbs. When designing for my clients, she works with very hard to create the garden that the client wants, not that she wants, that she thinks they need. Although often through the use of persuasion with their clients, they determine that they want what she thinks they need. How one interacts with the garden is very important to Caroline. The importance of walking into and through the garden, where one pauses for a view or sits, the feeling that a garden evokes. She's very passionate about building gardens that will last, incorporating as many natives as she can. They will fare better in our changing climate, and selecting plants that are the right ones for the location, not just sun or shade, but size, water requirement, resistance to damage from deer and other critters. While in graduate school at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., working for another designer for several years, and for the first 10 years after starting her own business, Caroline drew all of her plans by hand with pencil and pen on vellum. They were beautiful, but making the slightest change required redrawing plans, having more prints made, and was very inefficient. About 4 years ago, she took advantage of the slow winter season. What's that? And took all of the design software classes in Zoom before many people had even heard of Zoom. It took lots of practice, but within the first few months, it became very clear how much more efficient she could be on revisions and printing only the copies she needed full size. And during COVID, the ability to present landscape plans to clients virtually was incredibly helpful. The designers that work for her now all take DynaScape training as well. There's my little plug. Thanks, Caroline, for that. And thank you and welcome aboard.
Thanks.
And we've got Joanne Shaw. So Joanne Shaw is a designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscapes, Inc. Since graduating with a certificate in landscape design, she has spent the past 17 years designing landscapes in Durham region. And for those of you that don't know, that's the east end of Toronto, for her own clientele, establishing local nurseries and trusted contractors. Her website, I strongly recommend you go check out, downtoearth.ca. And Joanne has been designing with DynaScape since 2011 and loves it. It has really helped her grow her business and work with ease and with some great projects and amazing clients. Joanne has a garden radio show on realityradio101.com. Down the Garden Path since 2014 and released it as a podcast in 2017. And in 2022, she and her podcast co-host released a book to help gardeners and clients maintain their gardens. It's called Down the Garden Path, a step-by-step guide to your Ontario garden. Thanks, Joanne. I'm really happy to have you on the call today.
Thanks, Beth.
And last but definitely not least is Pierce Butcher. Pierce has always known that she was an artist who loved nature and science. So in college, she found herself double majoring in earth and environmental sciences and art. When Pierce stumbled upon the idea that she could design the outdoors, she knew she had found her niche. Landscape design is a unique combination of art, science, and problem solving. Pierce loves the challenge of looking at a space, listening to the concerns and dreams of the homeowner, and coming up with beautiful solutions. So, thank you for joining us, Pierce. You always have so much to bring to the table. So, welcome. So, without further ado, I'd love to get started with my first question, which is about mentoring. So, often finding a mentor or someone we can model ourselves after assists us with our practice and our development. Who is your role model that inspires you in your landscape design business? And I think maybe I'll start with Pierce.
Um, so I had the pleasure of doing an internship after my junior year in college, and I came up to DC and I got to work for a landscape design build firm who worked in and around the Metro DC area. And it was a women-owned firm, and it's really where I cut my teeth. I did all sorts of things that summer, and then after I graduated from college, I came to work for them full time, and I was doing everything from answering phone calls to helping them pick out plants in the nursery for each job to spraying Roundup in people's yards before we would install their new landscape. And I really loved seeing how they interacted with their clients, how they ran their business, learning from the designer that they had on staff to draw the beautiful plans. And I truly, that is where I learned the most, and where I got to I also started grad school too. The owner of that company had done the same program that Caroline did. And so while I was working for them, I was also started going to George Washington University in their graduate certificate program. So graduate certificate of landscape design. So I would drive all around DC during the day and go to all these different jobs or work in the office, and then go downtown and take classes at night. And horticulture classes were at the National Arboretum with just some incredible instructors. So that whole experience when I was 22 to 25 was really my biggest inspiration and my biggest launching point for eventually starting my own business while I was raising my family.
That's awesome, Pierce. Yeah, I think we can learn so much from by example. Sounds like that's the case with you. How about you, Abby?
My biggest mentor was actually one of my instructors in school. She was a graduate from Cornell, and she is a woman-owned landscape design firm. She's design only as well. Her name's Wendy. She owns Ivy Street Designs here in Denver. And I always joke that I got a Cornell education on a community college tuition. But when I sort of go through any sort of part of my business, whether that be behind the scenes or a design decision, I kind of think about her and her teachings and what would she do. She's been in business for about 30 years. I think she actually just sold her business, and she's just been a huge inspiration, being woman owned and doing exactly what I want to do. I really didn't know that I wanted to be design only when I got into this. I thought either you had to run a crew or work for a firm, and sort of seeing what she created for herself was a really big inspiration for me. So
It's really helpful when you can see a clear vision, right, of somebody else and what they're doing. It helps pave the way for you. So that's amazing, and I love that you got your Cornell education on that shoestring budget, because I'm sure Cornell's not a cheap university to attend.
Cornell is pretty great.
That's awesome. And Caroline, love to hear
Yes.
who inspired you.
Yeah, so I have a great mentor. I also worked for her while I was in grad school, and she is a landscape designer here in Washington, D.C. She lives less than a mile from me. And I would show up at work and she would have me do everything from drafting plans, site analyses, helping her with her billing, helping her with her accounting, which is really helpful to understand how the business was run. She has a design only business as well as I do. I help kind of coordinate and manage projects, but got to know all of the landscapers that she worked with and all the different contractors who do railings and fences and lighting and irrigation. So it was really a great opportunity for me to really learn the business. She is still a very good friend of mine and mentor. We have coffee and dinners. We have our little quarterly team dinners, even though we don't really work together anymore. But it's been a great relationship and almost 20 years of mentorship.
Wow, that's great.
Wow, how blessed are you? It's
Really
amazing.
lucky.
Very lucky.
Very good. And last but not least, Joanne, I'd love to hear take.
Yeah, I really started a little differently in that I was working I didn't know I really wanted to be a designer. I just wanted to learn more about plants. So I was working at a garden center and a nursery and, kind of fell into the landscape design certificate thinking, oh, I'll learn more about plants while working at the garden center. So it was kind of best of both worlds, learning at school and then learning, with customers, and then joining the team with the garden center of their landscape designer team. So it was very interesting. It's kind of like, you learned a little bit and then you were thrown into the fire to go to people's homes and do the designs in an hour and, but also interacting with the other designers and learning. And we were all at different stages. We all worked in different areas of the city. So it was really a great, so mine was a little bit more collaborative learning that way. And like it was a slow build to building my own business. And we still get together. We still do Zoom calls, many of them. One of them was the one who actually taught me initially DynaScape, even though I've taken training from Beth, of course. But it has been a really great experience from several different women in the industry, and just learning from them and growing that way. And yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Thanks for that, everyone. So the I love this thing. Society has conditioned women to be people pleasers.
Mhm.
How have you had difficult clients and have you broken up with clients and how have you handled that as a female? I think it's a nice to hear your take on it. Anybody want to jump out with this one?
I can start. I was referred to a client from a contractor, and I went in, and the relationship that I have there is, when I get referred by a contractor, it becomes sort of my client, my design client. So I go in and I meet this gentleman and he's giving me all of his ideas, and typically in the space, I'll be able to spitball and throw out some ideas, and everything that I was saying, he was shooting down. And that's okay, but I guess you kind of walk away from the process feeling like, why was I there?
Mm.
And during the discussion about price, his wife chimed in and asked a lot of inappropriate questions about how I run my business and where am I making my money. And it felt very uncomfortable. And it turns out that they were both lawyers. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I felt like I was being interrogated, to be honest. And I didn't give him a price on the spot, but I had sort of talked about different ranges and, what certain things cost and what their budget was. And I told them that I would get back to them with a price. And over the course of the evening, I thought about it and I just realized that they were not going to be enjoyable to work with. And my mom always said, trouble going in, trouble coming out. And I decided that I was just going to break up with them before I even started the process and avoid a lot of heartbreak. And I was very polite about it. And when I just said that we were not a good fit and that I would not be moving forward to provide them a quote, he got back to me, and there was probably about a 4-page email telling me how bad of a business manager I was and how I don't provide good customer service. And you know what? It was just fine with me. And I knew exactly what I was going to get back from him. And it was really probably one of the first times I had ever said no, and I didn't regret it one bit. So I think it's very important to stand up for yourself and just get to the point where where one door closes, another window will open and you'll have your next client and they'll be even better than the one you lost.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's so good, Abby. And can you imagine if you had taken them on, what the long letters you would have gotten taking them on? I always call that the honeymoon stage. So if it was bad then, can you imagine what the marriage would have been like?
Totally. And
Oh.
I actually called my contractor and I was like, I would run if I were you. I mean, you know, I don't know if he ever took any work from them, but I think he probably passed them on to me to sort of, you know, expedite that process. So.
Excellent, excellent. And Caroline, I think you have a story to tell.
Yeah. So I had a client that I worked with. I didn't have that initial sense of maybe this isn't going to be a good relationship with the client. But she was just dissatisfied with everything, not just the landscape, but just everything that we ever talked about. And after I did the plans and we did the installation, and it actually was a really lovely garden, she just wasn't happy. It wasn't what she wanted, which was what her neighbor's garden was, which was a completely different environment. It was her neighbor had a flat garden in sun with all these amazing sunny, sun-loving plants, and she had a very shady garden on a slope. Anyway, so after a while of kind of working back and forth, I finally had to break up and share with her that it was me, not her, that just wasn't able to give her what she needed and what she had envisioned in her garden. And it was a really tough thing because I felt so guilty that I just, as you mentioned, people pleaser, I just couldn't please. There was nothing I could do to make her happy. But I did, and it was a clean break. And then I took my contract back to my lawyer and said, please add in some language that allows me to get out of a relationship if I see the need to during the process.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'd love that language. And
yes, please share, Caroline.
It's so empowering too, I think, when you can let go of a client. I think we feel like we always have to please everybody and please all these clients, but when you get to the point in your career when you can actually say, no, I'm not going to serve every client. Not every client is for me. I think it's so empowering. So it's great that you guys are at that stage that you can release clients and let them go.
I've never
Awesome.
had the courage to actually hard break up with a client, but in the few instances where I have had really difficult clients who are constantly, like Abby said, questioning everything you're doing, very abrasive questions. One of them was even I met with him one time and I really didn't like the way he spoke to his wife. It was very uncomfortable. And then he next time I talked to him on the phone, turned around and lashed out at me that way. And so I just immediately was like, I'm no longer going to speak to him on the phone. I am not going to meet with him face to face. I will drop things off at his doorstep. I will and I just set up very hard boundaries with both of those difficult clients, just saying, I don't need to receive this kind of treatment from you, but I'm going to finish what I promised. And I'm going to just not meet with you face to face anymore. I'm going to just, and interestingly, because I stuck with it and just continued to be polite to them and give them what I had promised, they actually the other contractors who work with them were like, oh my gosh, this person is so horrible. But interestingly, at the end of the process, they would be like, oh my gosh, Pierce, we loved working with you. Have to come back and see the garden. So I felt like that was a little win. It's these really difficult people, because I continued to, in one point, be the people pleaser, but yet with boundaries on my end, they had no clue that they were so difficult and that I had stepped back because anyway, so that was my solution to that problem, was just putting up boundaries, continuing to give them what I promised, but no more, not giving them all the extra things they were asking me for. That was too much. So I just thought it's very interesting to me that these older gentlemen, they tend to be older gentlemen, tend to like me at the end of this process, even though the feeling was not mutual. So that was my solution.
Oh, so you wear it well, Pierce. The facade and what's going on back in your head is totally different. That's amazing. It's the Southern charm, I think, Pierce.
Should get an Oscar sometimes for my
performance.
Mm-hmm.
Joanne, did you have anything to add?
I think I think of the regrets. So it is something I struggle with. People pleasing is a huge struggle for me. And I think at the times where my gut told me it was going to be an issue, and the little prickle in the back of your neck. And even when I first started, I had clients, almost try me fighting off tears because they were so difficult, but I still kept going, So I feel like I've learned my lesson through the regrets because my intuition was right. And, I made it through the end, but I think now I really pay attention when I feel that intuition, then I try not to take them on at all. So I've really learned and really try to really be in tune with that, because I think I've proven to myself that my intuition is correct. And if I suspect that it's going to be a challenging situation or a challenging client, then it's just better for me to kind of pass it along, or say that, it's not the timing isn't right for us, something like that. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
been
and I think there's actually science now with that gut reaction.
Mm.
We always talk about the gut reaction, but there actually is now science that we have a nerve going right from our brain to our gut, and it's survival mode. So when we get that gut reaction, we shouldn't fight it. And I think
Yeah.
all of us can attest when we have fought it, it's we regret it, right? That we've tried to push through something. That's awesome. So I'd love to talk about this, and this probably could take up the rest of our session, but with the consensus that men still make 28% more than women,
Mm.
are you charging enough for your designs?
Oh,
Mm.
that's
What
always
do
a
you guys think?
challenge.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends in the industry who are landscape architects, and my husband, of course, has a little bug in my ear, always saying, charge more, charge more.
Mhm.
It's hard when you are an independent designer. It feels pretty isolating. Pierce and I have the luxury of belonging to a little group behind the scenes who all run their own businesses. They're all women owned, and we all commiserate about this quite a bit. And I think there's this really hard thing when you're working for yourself, because for me, if I walked in, or if someone walked into my space and charged me what I charge for design, I would be like, I would never pay that, because it's what I do. But I think too, it's valuable to people who don't know what they're doing. They don't know the plants, they don't know the hardscaping. It's a valuable tool, and it's a very emotional process. And so when you're putting upwards of 150,000 or 100,000 or 150,000 into a yard, and the design portion is one small part of that, that is actually probably one of the most important parts. And so I struggle because I can see that value. And I think homeowners are starting to see that, and they're understanding it a little bit more. I think COVID really shined the light on the fact that people needed to overhaul their space and plan it well if they're going to be putting that much money into a project. So I struggle with that constantly. But at the same time, I know that getting into this business and starting my own business, the rise to what I would call success has been a lot faster than if I worked for a firm and I was being given the tools or being dictated my prices by a firm. I think I can figure out my own path. And so far, I feel great about what I'm charging, what I'm doing. Occasionally I'll miss and I'll end up biting off more than I can chew. And it's frustrating when you realize you didn't charge enough, but at the same time, I can sleep at night knowing that I'm giving good service. The prices are good. They're telling their friends. Every year, like I said, I'm servicing 60 to 70 clients a year. That's a lot. And I feel good about it. So could I inch towards a higher, per design fee? Of course. But I also want to make it accessible to people and give people the opportunity to have this experience. And if you're getting into that really, really high end, it sort of edges people out. And I don't necessarily love that feeling.
So you charge by the design then, Abby?
I do. I don't set an hourly price because it's too hard to know how long something's going to take. I can walk into a space and understand, okay, there might be a kitchen or a pergola or a water feature, and we're doing front and backyard. And I know that this is their budget and this is the complexity. There might be elevation changes that are challenging. So I really dictate it more by the design, and it works out really well. I do a deposit, and then at the end, I take the rest of the payment, and it works out really nicely. I just have had a really hard time doing the hourly fee. We do offer aftercare, what I call aftercare, and it is a service that we provide where we can go in and place plants or do a pre-construction meeting or place boulders, and we charge by the hour for that. But that's just an ancillary service that we offer. And not every client picks it up or uses that service, but I would say it's becoming more and more I guess used just because they want that hands-on higher touch service.
Awesome. So I challenge, do you work out how many hours it does take you to work on average on a project?
I used to track my hours on an app just to kind of figure it out. And I would say that, it varies obviously depending on the complexity and what it is, but commercial clients, or I should say HOA type clients, my hourly is quite a bit higher just because it's a little bit easier. It's easier to make decisions when there's a lot of people, for me anyway, when there's a lot of people who are going to be having input. I am less invested in it, but when it's a homeowner who's going to be looking at the plan, living with the plan every single day, and it's their money that they're spending directly, I feel like I'm a little bit more apt to be careful and cultivate a really beautiful landscape, whereas like an HOA or a commercial setting, it's just a little quicker of a process for me. So anyway, but to answer your question, Beth, I have tracked it, and I would say I can range anywhere from 150 an hour to 450 an hour. It's pretty wide.
Right. Yeah, it's good. It's good to kind of know in your brain what you're making per hour. So if you ever do want to add that hourly rate on there, the only thing I like about having that hourly rate attached to my fees is that people don't take advantage of that time. If they know that there's an hourly fee attached to it, they don't abuse the time. Whereas if they know it's just a flat rate, let's just use her for as much as we can.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm pretty good about being transparent about that. I've had clients who have come out of the woodwork a year later who haven't installed yet, and they want me to edit something, and it's quite a big edit. And I say, well, I need to charge you for my time. And they're like, what do you charge? So I'm pretty good about standing up for myself with that.
Awesome. Anybody else want to shout out about charging and charging enough?
I think I can speak to, I'm okay setting the design fee, and I think my design fee is appropriate. And of course I say, starting at on my website and then evaluating, like Abby said, once you're there and you know the scope of work, charging the fee. But I think what I do struggle with is because I am a people pleaser, is all the extras, right? The site visits, the choosing the plants, the extra phone calls and the extra, I do go and place the plants for them, or if they're working with one of my contractors, then I feel like I'm really placing them for my contractor. But you also want the end result, like as much as we want the money, but I also want the end result to be what I want it to be, right? And want to be proud of the actual install. There's nothing worse than, showing up and going, oh, what happened? Like nothing's where it's supposed to be, or there's too much, the guy's planted kind of according to the design, but it's not exactly. So I think that time is a little bit harder for me to charge, speaking up the hourly and rate. So I think that is something I'm really going to work on this year. I think the last couple of years through COVID has been pretty intense. The volume has been high, like Abby, 60, 70 clients. It's a lot. And I've never been good at tracking my time. So, and I agree with you, Beth, that if the clients knew there was money, like a dollar value attached to my time, they probably would be more conservative or, practical with it, as opposed to, I always feel like I just I owe them, or it's important for me to just do it to make sure that they're happy with how it turns out. But the only one that's suffering there is my sanity and my sleep, right? Because there's only so many hours in the day.
Yep. And you know what? The things that you mentioned as extras are probably the biggest values that you're adding, to the project. And I really strongly encourage you to put that onto your fee, because even with your contractor, placing the plants for them is such a service that takes a real headache out of their project. So don't undervalue that at all, because by all means, it's probably the biggest thing you do. Caroline, would you like
Yes.
to hop in on this?
Sure. So one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, and this was early on, from a friend of mine who runs her own business, not related to landscaping, but she said, do not undervalue yourself. People are hiring you for your knowledge, your expertise, your guidance, your opinions. And so there is a value to that. And she said, don't undersell yourself. So I kind of do a little bit of a hybrid with my fees. So I'll have a set flat design fee, kind of like Abby does. Look at the whole project, the scope. I know about kind of how many hours it's going to take me to develop the project. But once the designs are completed, if they want to go on their own to have it installed, they can, or I can help them coordinate the project. And I do that at an hourly rate. And so that's outlined in my contract with the client. So they know from the get-go, they're going to get a plan that they can turn over to someone, and it's, soup to nuts, every detail. But almost, I would say 90% of the time, the clients then hire me for my hourly rate to help them coordinate and work with the landscapers. So I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. And that the key is making sure that what I've designed is what gets installed. And so that I always tell my clients, I want their expectations to be met, but my expectations, which are a little bit higher, need to be met too.
Wow.
So, and
that's awesome.
It's like moving furniture. Like, could you move this tree? And yes, that boulder, but can you turn a little more? And I don't care that it weighs 500 pounds,
Yeah.
So,
The guys love
awesome.
that, right?
yeah, they love me. Yeah.
Those are nuggets. Those are really great information, Caroline, and definitely knowing our value is huge. Pierce, I'd love to hear your take on charging.
Mine's similar, where I do a flat design fee after I've met with the client. So it says on my website, designs start at $2,000. And so I will make sure the clients know that before we have a consultation. My consultation fee is $125, and that is not deducted from the design fee. That's a separate fee. That's my time meeting with them and then writing up that design fee proposal. Excuse me. So I want to see your space with my own eyes. I want to walk through it, see how complicated it is. Because a lot of times the most labor intensive part of this whole project is the site analysis. Because I live in Greenville, South Carolina, tons of mature trees, lots of older homes that are being renovated. And so there's lots of old plant material that sometimes they want to keep it, and we just need to. So that to me is, I have to see that with my own eyes. I have to see the grade of the site and see how long it's going to take me to input all that data, to gather it and then put it into CAD. And so I will meet with you, and then I will send them a design fee proposal via email through I use a software called Wave. It's free. It's called waveapps.com, and they have a beautiful little template that they just click on the link and it opens up on their computer so they can see everything detailed out for the design fee proposal and what they are receiving for that. And then 50% is due when I start the project. When I do the site analysis, just for my own guilt, I don't like asking for money until I've started the project, because I don't want people who have paid me money like bugging me. But so they tend to be a little more patient if they haven't paid me yet. So 50% due when I start the project, 50% due when it's over. But I think I'm going to tweak that this year, because in all transparency, I've gotten burned the past year, because I'll send like my initial concept, and then I'll send the next version with the plant pictures, or like all the plant labels and the plant picture catalog. And then sometimes they'll ghost me, and they'll be like, well, we're still thinking about it. Like, we're still editing. Like, I still want to talk about this. And then like, I just move on. I mean, I got projects in queue, and and then I'm like, shoot, it's been 6 weeks and they still owe me 50%. So in all transparency, I think I'm tweaking my, my a fee schedule this year to say your next 50% is due when I send you the plan where all the plants are labeled. Because at that point, they could technically go install it themselves. And so I'm still, if they still have some tweaks, like at that point in the design process, like they've already said they're happy with the layout, and I just want to like, tell me if you're happy with the plants. It's easy to change plants. That's why I love DynaScape. Like if you don't like the color yellow, fine, we'll take out the Celadora daylilies. Like, so I just want to give them the opportunity to still tweak it at that point. But I've learned that I need to collect my final payment at that point. And then once they sign off on it, then I will prepare a document for my contractors, and not necessarily, it doesn't have to be for a specific contractor, but just the supplementary documents, like the dimensions and takeoffs, so that they have, we export that like plants and materials list, so they have all the Excel sheet with all the plants and then the materials. And so they have that beautiful package all ready to bring in the contractors and get bids, and all those contractors are bidding on the same numbers. And I don't do a great job of tracking my hours. I usually have like so many projects in different stages in the design, like open on my computer at different times. And I do a terrible job tracking my hours. But I read somewhere, you probably heard this too, but that great quote, it's like, it took me 15 years to be able to do it in 15 minutes. So I don't track my hours. I just give them that flat fee at the beginning of the project, and that's how I charge.
Pierce,
That's amazing.
do you present your designs, or do you just send them over?
Honestly, I used to before COVID, and COVID kind of like we quit doing that, and I haven't done it since. Like I talk to them, I'll sometimes meet with them like once on site during the design process too. Sometimes we'll bring in a contractor. Like I feel like I've been dealing with a lot of really steep elevations lately, and so I'll have these big ideas and big concepts. So I'll bring in a contractor and with the homeowner and be like, okay, here are our ideas. Like, are you seeing anything on the construction side that I can't see during the design stage? Like, can you build this basically? Yeah. And so I'll get feedback that way. And a lot of times at this point, I'm just dropping it off at their house. And we kind of all talked about it through, my dog is chewing things up. We've talked about it through email and phones and meetings at that point. And I don't know, that's on hold. I haven't done it since COVID because it kind of feels like a time suck, but I know it's important. So I don't know.
I just think that would be a really good time to collect your payment. That's why I say that.
Well, a lot of times I need it at this point. Now I need it before then, because like people have been, like I've been sending out designs and people have not been paying me for them. And so I'm like leaving money on the table because it's like these influx designs that they haven't completely signed off on yet. And I want them to be happy with it before they're done. But I need them to.
Yeah, I always tell my students that how valuable is a drawing. And I say, if you give it to them, it's zero, because as soon as you give it to them, the value has gone into the toilet. So whenever you're giving them something, I think you're right, Pierce. I think you should follow up with that and change your fee schedule, that you're not giving them anything and letting them kind of get out the back door on you.
Or send your invoice, your final invoice with that draft.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to leave you with is talking about, what would you tell your younger self? I think I'd sit my younger self down in a room and lock myself away for a month and give myself all this advice of what I would not do and what I would change. But if you could give us one nugget, something you would tell your younger self, what would it be? And can I start with Joanne?
Sure. And I think it's something we've already talked about, was listening to your intuition. That's something that I think my old age now is really listening to whether, and it's not it could be a good client, but it could be that the job, is not for you. It's not the scale that you want. It's not the timelines that you are able to do. And just having the guts to say, this project isn't for me. I think especially when you're first starting out, you feel like you have to take everything. Everything's a learning experience and everything's going to teach you something. And this is a great client to, they're really wonderful and I really want to do this for them. But if it isn't the right fit, it isn't the right fit. And that's okay. There's like, I think you said there's going to be a better client around the corner. Like, it's okay. So I think that's something I still struggle with 18 years in, but that is something I would definitely tell my younger self, that it's okay to pass on them. And it doesn't matter the reason. Like I said, it doesn't have to be because they were a difficult client. Sometimes you walk into a space and it's just not for you. And you're not being paid to learn how to figure that out, right? You're being paid to do it. So yeah. So I think really listening to your intuition and your gut.
Sage advice. Thanks, Joanne. Caroline.
So this is landscape design was a completely new career for me. And I would say to my younger self, don't be afraid to jump in and try something. I was really nervous about making a huge career change. I had been in marketing for years, and I was very nervous. And do I know what I know? And I think that's where I got that advice: don't undervalue yourself. But not just don't be afraid. Jump in, and if it's something that you love to do and love to create, that everything else will happen. It'll all work out. As long as you love what you do. Now, there are going to be days when you don't like what you do, like sending out bills, because I do like I hate billing. But for the most part, I just love what I do every day, and that's an important thing. An important thing as you get older is that, like, how are you spending your time and your days? And it's got to be doing something that you enjoy.
Yeah, you're right. And I love how you're saying just jump in and do it. I see so many women. I think it's a trait of women too, that we never feel like we have enough information, to do it. Whereas I think our male counterparts just do it. They don't think twice about it. I think we always have to think we need more information, or we don't know enough, or we're not good enough. Well, you know what? We are. And we just figure it out. Just jump in, and maybe you have to ask for help for something, but you just got to get started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Abby.
Sure. I would tell myself that if you're going to start a business, don't approach it from a scarcity mindset, and don't be fearful. I'm really, really great at communicating with people. I will talk to anybody. I will ask for advice. And I would say that there's enough pie to go around. The person next to you who's doing the same work you are doing is not a threat. They're actually an asset to you. They can see things a little differently than you can. And there's no sense in gatekeeping. If you have information that is good to share it. It'll come back around tenfold someday in the future. I'm doing a lot of mentoring to younger people now, and I'm at the point in my career now where I feel that I have a lot of information to share. And it's been amazing for me too, because I get energized sharing that information, and it kind of re-ups the love I have for the work that I do. And it's exciting when you can sit there and talk about what you love for an hour with somebody who loves it just as much as you, and you get really excited about stuff. So I would say, when you can, whenever you can, share information and just impart your wisdom wherever, and there's enough pie to go around.
And I think you're right. And I think when we share, what we give, we get back tenfold. And mentoring is definitely one of those things that, you think you're giving a lot, but oh my goodness, what you receive in return is just liquid gold, in my opinion. I just love it. So kudos for you, Abby, for giving back and mentoring newer designers out there. Pierce, I'd love to get your idea on this.
Right. So I have two things. One, that my difference is an asset, not a crutch. I just remember being like moving back to Greenville, and having my third was really young and wanting to get into this business, and realizing it's mostly men, and I would feel so intimidated that, like, I'd be showing up at these job sites with all men, and I'd be only I was still driving a minivan at that point, and I was just so self-conscious. And then, like, it finally clicked that, like, what makes me different in being a woman in this field is, like, such an asset, because I think we are more emotionally intuitive, and we are really good listeners. And not that there are men who aren't, but I think that's what I know that I am and I can bring to the table. I know that I'm a good listener. I like building these relationships with people. And that uniqueness and that difference is an asset. And the other thing that's a completely different subject, but I would say to myself, don't be afraid to invest in big ticket items because you're afraid of the technology. The first one was DynaScape, just like Caroline. I had only learned hand drafting and I knew I needed to invest in CAD, and I was so nervous. And I have never looked back. Like, it is the best decision. Like, it sounds like such an ad, but like, because we're doing this, but it is like,
Yeah.
I have just been able to grow my business tenfold since then because I can work so much more efficiently. And I love being able to work with architects and contractors and help my contractors, my landscape contractors, to just send them all that information and do edits. And that was awesome. And then for years, I was driving to a print shop to get all my prints, and then I would have an edit and I have to go back, and they would say, like, we do sell printers. Oh gosh, no, I would hate to have to change that roll of paper or change an ink cartridge. And then I finally did it, and it is right here. And I like, oh, it has made me so much more efficient. And guess what? It's not so hard to change a roll of paper. And it's really not that difficult. And so that was a huge big ticket item. Absolutely do not regret it, and has helped me so much. The zip level, I bought it and it sat in the box for 3 months because I was afraid to use it. It's really easy, and it's also like super helpful in my business. And then the other one, which isn't scary, but I invested in Nearmap software, or it's like a high resolution satellite imagery, and it's like $2,000 a year, and I share it with 2 other people because we can share an account. And that has helped me so much. Again, like being here in South Carolina, where there's all these huge trees, you can just zoom in on your property, and I can trace driveways and retaining walls. And usually I can cite the trees based on the shadow. The canopy still shades it a little bit, but that has helped me so much in that icky part of site analysis, trying to get that base plan as perfect as I possibly can, so that my designs are actually useful for my contractors to build all the hardscape elements. So those are the 3 things that, like, I wish I had invested in sooner to make me more efficient and more precise.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're afraid to spend money, because it's money out of our pocket. But oh my gosh, sometimes that comes back tenfold when we do invest, and we save so much time.
Mm-hmm.
And our time is probably our most valuable commodity. Actually, it is the most valuable commodity we have. Abby, sorry, I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say that zip level is amazing. That was something that completely changed the game for me as well, and made my designs a lot more biddable for my contractors, and they can actually see it and install it as it's designed, and we're not guessing as much as we were before. And it's just been a huge game changer, in my opinion. And plus, when you show up with that on site, it just looks really professional, and it merits charging a little bit more when they know that you're actually analyzing the site. It's been good.
I always say that zip level, it pays for itself in one misstep.
Yep.
You miss one step, and that's the cost of one, right? So it pays for itself with that. I'm trying out the Mosher right now, so
Oh
I'll have to
yeah,
get back to you guys on that
interesting.
one, because it will actually map out the property as well as the grade. So we'll see if I can get it figured out. Awesome. One more thing I was thinking while we were talking is, where do you get your clients? Where do your new clients filter in from?
Mine are completely word of mouth. I don't advertise anywhere. So I rely, and I think it's really helpful because my clients will then share with their friends or colleagues or neighbors what the process has been like, that the designs aren't going to be ready next week, that they're not going to have a patio by their party 2 weeks from now. So it's just they have come into it with a realistic expectation. And that's been helpful. My others, I work with about 6 different custom home builders. And so I'm going in oftentimes with a blank slate and with grading plans and tree preservation plans. So it's really helpful in doing a site analysis when you have all of the information already. But those are my 2 biggest sources of business.
And when you were starting, Caroline, where did you get your clients from?
So my very first client was my former office mate. I worked at the Discovery Channel, and she hired me to help her with her front garden. And she referred me to someone, and then that client referred me to 2 or 3 other people. And the next thing I knew, I think in my first year, I had 12 clients, starting from one. And I have about 30 gardens I install each year, and I have about 32 projects I'm working on right now. So it just, kind of this nice steady pace.
That's
but yeah,
great.
all,
And I like
all
how
word
you
of mouth. Mhm.
and I like how you have your clients train your new clients. I like
Yeah.
that. That's
Yes.
good. Pierce, I know you have a strong Instagram following. Does that help you with new clients?
Some, I think so. When I first moved out to Greenville about 8 years ago, we were living in Phoenix. I was not doing landscape design when we lived out west. And I wanted to get back into it. So the first thing I did was put a little message on Nextdoor, which is a horrible place. People are so mean to each other. But that was my very first little blurb that guess what? I'm here. I'm doing this now. And then I also cold called contractors here in town. Like I would see the trucks. I would notice the trucks driving around town, driving through my neighborhood, and I just made some cold calls to contractors and asking, would you want to install a design for one of my clients, or do you have a designer on site? Would you want me to do any designs for you? And so I started that way for the first year or two, and from then on out, it's pretty much just been word of mouth. I remember one person called me because one contractor had a design of mine at a picking up plants, and a guy looked over and was like, I need one of those. And so he wrote down my name and number just because he looked at the, professional landscape design. And I think kind of going back to our idea of how do you charge your clients, and are you charging hourly, and how do we set boundaries? I definitely want to set boundaries with difficult clients, but when I have to give a little bit extra time and I might feel a little bitter about it, what goes on in the back of my head is, I might be losing a little money now, but I want to give them a great experience so then they tell someone else. So this, maybe a little bit of lost income right now might lead to another $3,000-$4,000 job later, because they're she was such a great listener. She was so easy to work with. I really enjoyed all her input. I want to give them an excellent experience so then they can keep telling their friends. I don't want to be the one who's oh, she was so nitpicky with her time, and she refused to give me any more edits after this point. And so that's kind of always in the back of my head too. Okay, I just need to do this one more revision for this client. I need to answer other questions and keep the process moving, but also just continue to be that very polite, yes, if I don't know the answer, I'll find it for you person, so that they will keep recommending me to their friends.
That's awesome, Pierce. It's great. Joanne, how do you get your clients?
A combination for me. I do get a lot of referrals. I think a lot of new clients find me on my website as well. I think if I go back to the previous question with the investment, that a really good website, I feel, is one of the big keys, to having that SEO is important. And so clients find me on the website. The radio show and podcast do help that, me stay up high, rank higher in Google. But it's the content you own, right? So that I think is very important. And then I do work with a handful of really great contractors that it's taken them a while to know, but especially through COVID, they've literally said to every client now, you need to get a design first. And so they have been a really good source of, because some of them have design experience as well, but they just don't have the time, because they're running their crews and running the jobs. So you're really seeing the value as the zip level. They really are, now that they get that data, the help, Pierce mentioned the plant lists and the plant and material lists that DynaScape exports, that's all great. So I think that has really enamored me to my contractors, that they want to refer their clients to me. So it's it's kind of a and I think I love that it's coming. You never know where the clients are going to come from, but so definitely word of mouth, and by giving great service, right? That is an important feature. And the website helps me have that price, because I put my prices on the website, or at least the starting at, because I'm not great at talking about money. So I feel like the fact that it's there, they know I'm not just making it up or pulling it out of a hat, right? This is, and they've got pictures of the design, so they see what they're getting. So I feel like the website really helps me win over the clients. And so, yeah, so it's a combination for me.
That's awesome. And maybe perhaps weeds out people that aren't willing to pay your rates too, right? They don't even pick up the phone and call you because they know
That's right.
that you're out of their price range.
Yeah. Yeah, that does help, right? Because if that's not someone, especially someone who's new to the process, they're calling and they have no idea. So it's easier for them to see and go, okay, this isn't, I'm not quite ready for that yet, and that's okay.
Yeah. Abby, I just have a minute or two if you want to pop in there because I know you have tons of clients every year. So we'd love your take on where you're getting your clients from each
Yeah,
year.
I would say that it's all word of mouth, just like Caroline said. I have a lot of following, I guess, on Nextdoor. That was a huge win for me. I don't go the advertising route at all. I'm just one neighbor in the community who shares info periodically when a storm is coming. If we've got trees that are budded out, hey, knock the snow off or whatever. It's just sort of this sneaky way of getting my name out there, and it's working. Contractors are constantly referring me. I had a sort of a win this year where I had 2 of my jobs highlighted in the Belgard paver catalog, and that actually ended up bringing a ton of contractors out of the woodwork who wanted to work with me. Joanne, to your point, I think that when you can design for a company like them who they don't have the time to draw, they just want to install, your design actually would probably give them a better design to install than just them going in on their own. So they really find value in working with me as well. So they have gotten to the point now where they're like, you know what, you need to talk to Abby and she will come in. And it also helps them with their schedule a little bit too. When they walk on site and a homeowner wants to work with them, they're like, okay, when can you start? And they're like, we've got 3 other jobs in the pipeline. You need to talk to Abby. So it sort of gives them a little bit of a speed bump, which I think they appreciate. It's not uncommon in the middle of summer for clients to be waiting up to almost 45 days to meet with me, which I get stressed out about. But at the same time, it's sort of like the wait at a very fancy restaurant that everybody wants to go to. I think there's some value in that. And it's showing customers that you are sought after, you are in, a hot commodity, so to speak. So I've had Facebook groups that have come out of the woodwork, leads have come from that. I had a customer who said that he was on some sort of a neighborhood dads group and somebody put my name out there. I'm like, what? How did I get on that? But it, 9 years in, it's amazing where leads are coming from, and it's all organic. I always say that I don't like to pay to play, and it feels a little inauthentic. And when they're coming from these organic leads, it just means that my hard work is paying off and that people are talking. So I had a funny story where I was shooting a little promo video and somebody had a camera and they were on me, and I was putting my sign in the yard as like this little final shot of this video, and somebody ran by and he's like, oh, hey, I know you from Nextdoor or Instagram or whatever it was. So it's like people are understanding my brand and they're seeing my logo, which is a bee, and they're familiar with me, which is great. Getting your name out there organically is amazing. So
there's nothing better than organic marketing. You're already proven before you walk in the door, which makes our life a lot easier. Well, I can't thank you guys enough. I could sit here for another 3 hours talking to you guys. There's so much we could be delving into, but I know you imparted so much knowledge and gave great value to those that have come in on the call today. So I appreciate all your time and your knowledge and being generous, with your information. So thank you so much.
thank you, Beth.
Thank you.